Hello and welcome to our Third Wall version 2 how-to video. Third Wall is a new plugin that allows you to greatly enhance cybersecurity for your ConnectWise Automate, formerly known as LabTech software. You'll forgive me if I interchange those two, as I'm quite used to saying LabTech, but they're the same thing. By now, if you're looking at this video, you probably already are either in a trial or have licensed Third Wall. If you do not have Third Wall, or worse, if you do not have LabTech, then this video probably isn't for you. And again, this is focused on version 2, not version 1. Version 2 is our completely different, new and powerful plugin. So, grab your coffee. Let's take a look at what we've got in front of you. So let's start in a very familiar place, the Automate or LabTech Control Center. And as you can see, we've got it in the navigation tree mode. And the reason for this is we really want to focus in on locations. That's where the bulk of the work is going to be done using Third Wall. So here's client, Third Wall home, and here's a location, Disney. Yes, we are in Florida, so we have a few appropriate names. So let me double click on Disney. And what you will see is, of course, a Third Wall tab is there now that we have the plugin up and running. And voila, there is the primary view that you'll be working with. We call this our heat map, but it's also more formally known as the security overview. This shows you at a glance what policies have what status in this location only. And you can see we have a legend down here that tells you in yellow means policy is not active, and as you can see, we have nothing active. Other than that, this page is pretty much a non-active page. It's mostly there for showing you what's going on, except for this part down here, which we'll come to just a little later. Meantime, the work is really done within each of these different tabs. And you can see that each one of these corresponds to a title in black. So that's where we do the bulk of the work. Let's take a look and see what it does. First off, this is the local built-in local account management, and we're going to actually enable a policy. This policy is disallow Microsoft accounts. We'll turn it on. You can see the button turns green, and we have the green save button. So when we click save, it tells us that all computers at this location disallow logons from Microsoft accounts. Plus, we got an auditable enabled since date. So if I'd done this a year ago, this would show a year ago. And an undo button has popped up, which is really critical to your understanding of how Third Wall works. I'm going to go back to our overview page, and you can see this now has turned green, protected since, and it matches the legend. So that's pretty straightforward. When you turn on a policy, there are two things that normally happen for most of these policies. This is critical. One is we will change that computer. In this case, or every computer, in that location. In this case, we will disallow all Microsoft logons using Microsoft accounts. Pretty powerful. And we slap a monitor on it, and that's why we're able to say protected since. Every few minutes, we're going to check and make sure that our setting on all of those computers is consistent with the policy. And if it's not, we're going to change it back. And we're going to let you know via ticketing that it has changed and we had to change it. So that's a pretty powerful piece of this. Policies equals change the computer and monitor it, and then let you know if there's something that happens in the meantime. Gives you a lot of power, a lot of protection and security. So let's go back to that, and I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to now turn it off. Oh, but look what it says. When saved, this policy's monitor will be turned off. This will not change any values and is not recommended. Consider an undo, which of course is sitting over here. But I'm going to go ahead and do this. I've decided I want to do this. It's going to save it. And if we go back to the overview, you'll notice that it turned orange. Orange means applied and removed the policy, but not undone. It's kind of a little warning for you, danger, danger, so to speak. And it gives you a visual that you may have done something that you didn't really want to do. We're giving you that ability, but you might not have. So what does this do when you turn it off? It turns off the monitor but does not change the values. So every computer in this location still cannot log in using Microsoft accounts. But we're not monitoring it any longer. So if somebody figures out a way around it, you have no protection really in that case. So that being said, let's go over here to the undo, and the undo will then complete the action. undo the policy, and it will revert the values and save them. And I'm going to come back to that one below it, in the radio button below it in a minute. So I just hit save, no longer active at this location. Let's go turn it back on. Oh, first I'll show you just to make sure you understand. That's back to yellow, no policy. And now I'm going to go back here and I'm going to disallow it again. I'm going to save it and I'm going to do an undo. And you notice I have the option like I had before to undo it and remove the policy. Takes it back to yellow. Or I can create a temporary suspension. Now, temporary suspension is a little different. It allows me for a period of 5 minutes all the way up to 60 minutes to do an undo, which again removes the value, reverts the value, and it removes the monitor. Does both of those, but only for a limited period of time. And I'm going to set it for 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, it will automatically turn back on. You use this on some of our policies, and it's not available on every one, but you use it when you want to do something to the computers in that location that this policy is inhibiting, but you don't want to forget to turn it back on. So that's pretty critical. So I'm going to hit save, and it tells me it's been temporarily suspended and will created at that time for 5 minutes. Back to the overview page, you'll notice it turned pink. Temporary undo is active. Now, something about this pink color and also this text, the verbiage here, those will not change until you close down the location screen and open it back up, and only then after 5 minutes. So if you're expecting this to change in 5 minutes, it won't. It'll stay there. But the policy will actually re-enable. That's strictly a UI limitation. It is not a application limitation. It will re-enable in 5 minutes, and you will be protected. Important point. I'm going to go ahead now and not wait 5 minutes. I'm going to click undo. And I have a chance to either remove the policy now or remove the suspension. I'm going to go ahead and remove the suspension, hit save, and you notice that it's now back to being turned on. And there you go. Really important that you use the temporary suspension and rather than doing an undo if you want to preserve this date for audit purposes. Okay? Use the temporary because if we don't destroy this date. And that gives you an audit trail. And the reason we can do that is because we know and you know that nobody's going to forget to turn that policy back on in just a few minutes. It's a limited action that you selected. So let's look at a few other things that you need to know about as you get started. Some of the different policies you will find out have incompatibilities. For instance, if we go into local user account management, you'll see there's an enforced password complexity. And back in local built-in account management, there's a set local administrative password. If you set both of them one before the other, you'll find out that if this is not complex, then you'll end up with a conflict and it will force you to make it complex or not apply the policy. So that's an important piece that you need to know. Secondarily, let's go back down here. You'll notice that there are a number of different policies that have check marks, sliders, data you can enter. Restrict local admin tools is a particularly interesting one. When I click on that, you'll notice that everything gets check marked, and this prevents people from using registry editor, run, command prompt, PowerShell, MMC, run as admin, task manager, and control panel. So let's say just for fun that we do those two right there, and we will use those as our going forward. And I'll hit save, and you'll notice that on the overview, we now have all of those restricted. So a lot of power, a lot of choices that you can do. And in fact, at this point, I'm going to actually reverse those just for fun. And you'll see when I hit save that they also reverse on the overview page. So really good stuff for you to look at there. I'm going to go back down to this page and I'm going to go down to Windows Installer, kind of an interesting one. These last two, Setup EXE, Install EXE, and Windows Installer, are designed to help you prevent people from installing unwanted software. So when you click on that, you get a radio button choice, disable, unmanaged, or disable all, and then you can hit save and go from there. Now when you do that, you'll find that these two are referenced in our documentation as to what each does, so we suggest you take a look at that to make sure you're comfortable with that. I'm not going to save it at this point. There are some others, for instance, OS security. You can put in some text here and some text here, which is really powerful both for branding. This is my MSP name, and then of course a legal disclaimer that prevents people from getting in when you don't want them to get in. Again, I won't bother with that one at this point, but some really powerful stuff that you can go to. So let's go back here and take a look at some more information. Some others that are important to watch out for. Disable common cloud storage is one that is very powerful. You can see some things where we can prevent people from stealing data by saving it in their Google Drive or someplace else. But you'll notice when I turn it on, it's asking me if I want to enable the Windows Firewall Workstations policy on third wall, because if I don't, this won't work. If I hit no, you notice it turns off. If I hit yes, and let's say I just want to stop people from getting to Google Drive and OneDrive and everything else I'm okay with, and then I hit save. We did just turn on the firewall on every workstation. And you know how I know it's workstation? Because every policy that has an asterisk by it does not apply to servers, but only to workstations. And you'll see there's quite a few of them that we're not nearly so concerned about preventing security breaches from workstations from servers as we are from workstations. Those are much more vulnerable because of the people factor. But I'm going to skip down here to protocol security, and you'll notice the firewall is on. Only the workstation one, not the server one, because it only requires the workstation as a prerequisite for that web blocking policy. If you decide to assign a configuration file, or if your firewall is being controlled by an antivirus, then none of those will work, and there are several of them. So you'll have to be careful with assigning those if you are not allowing third wall to control your firewall. So which are those? Well, I showed you one, which is under IO security, common cloud storage. Under application security, there's several: webmail, social media access, Google Play, and Apple App Store. Those are all reliant on the firewall being turned on for the workstations. There you go. It's an important point. There are more important things to consider. One of our primary features that people really are anxious to get is this user logon reporting, which I will turn on here. And you notice this also has a dependency. It requires log all, log on, and log off events to be turned on. So I'm going to say yes, do that. And it is now turned on. And now I'm capturing data that I can use in our logon reporting, which I will show you later. So there's a few dependencies like that. There's also a few things that will not work well together. If you go disable write to optical media, click on that, you notice read write to optical media grays out. Can't have both at the same time. Same thing with USB. I'm going to turn that off for now, but I think you're getting the point as to what actually works and what actually doesn't work here. I'm going to hit save. And let's go back to the security overview, and you can see we're starting to fill in a few things, and that's a good thing. What if I like this particular configuration of policies and I want to apply it to other locations? Well, I'm going to save it. Now I'm getting down to the profiles here. And I'm going to name it test2, just because that's a good name for today. Hit OK. And it's been saved. Now, I have the ability to call it up as a profile. And I'm not going to do that on this location. I'm actually going to go to another location so it's a little bit more cool as to what happens here. So going back to my navigation tree, I'm going to bring up Universal. So here comes Universal, and it also has a third wall tab. And I just have one policy on there, so that's good. Monitor for ransomware, which is one of our favorites. But let me see if I can show you how to use a profile. There they are. And I've got test2, and I'm going to turn it on. It says it's been loaded. You can read this at your leisure. And you notice all the blue that is turned up. So that means that those in blue are the changes that we're going to make. And you notice that monitor for ransomware did not go away. That's because we never delete with a profile. We only add with a profile. So that's important. And what can I do here? I can save it, in which case all these will turn green. Or I can click this really cool button. I can clear it if I don't want to do anything. I can delete it if I want to get rid of it, but I'm going to hit Apply Profile. And you'll notice that it'll apply to this location, or I can apply it to all locations within this client, or I can apply it to all of my clients under management. So this gives you a fast way to add to or proliferate a suite, a profile of policies to a bunch of computers at the same time. This feature is powerful, and that is also why, I'm just going to apply it to this location. It is also why we have a user restriction on this. Not everybody can use this. Anybody can save it, but not everybody can use it. So if I go back to my main console and I go to users, admin, that's me, and permissions, and you will eventually see third wall admin. You have to designate that, and of course you do that by right-clicking in this box and add. I'm not going to add dispatcher. I've already made myself a third wall admin. So this is one of two places where we have applied a very powerful restriction on who can use it. So make sure you use third wall admin with caution and discretion, because you really don't want those policies being proliferated in a profile if you don't have to. That can get pretty powerful. And I'll show you the other button that's restricted in a little while. So one other note about profiles, if you happen to try and load a profile across locations and one of those other locations already has a policy that is incompatible with what you're trying to do, then it will reject it. It will say cannot do it, and it will essentially just abort it. For instance, if you are trying to deploy a policy that includes a profile that includes disable write to optical media to another location that has disabled read write to optical media, it will abort and say I can't do that. So it'll give you a chance to correct that before you actually deploy the profile. Very important, because you can't have incompatible policies within the same location. So we've built in a few double checks for you. This is the essence of how to use this. Look at all of these different policies, read about them, be careful with some. A lot of them are really good, and we have a lot of guidance on our website, third-wall.com, where you can read about the different reasons you should apply them or should not apply them. But I'm going to point out something, that virtually everything in this protocol security page you should be careful with. Firewalls, hash storage, NTLM-v1, NetBIOS, IPv6, IGMP, and SMBv1. Not the audit. This one doesn't matter. This just turns on an audit for you, an audit trail. But the rest of these are important. And why? Because they can interfere with legitimate business applications. For instance, we've determined that NTLM-v1 interferes with HP printers scanning to computers. You might need that. We will leave it to you to determine which of these might be usable and useful for any given client within your management. We suggest using Nmap. We suggest using Wireshark or something similar to help determine if these protocols are actually being used. And we even suggest using a little bit of limited trial and error in a benign location before you deploy them broadly. Again, just a warning, be careful. That is the primary overview of the location page and how you create and remove policies. Really powerful. From here, let's move on and go to our computer page where you make exceptions. So here we are back at the main Automate Control Center, and there's Disney. We're going to open up a computer. I like Lego. Now you can do this either with the old or the new interface. I'm using the new interface, and we will launch that and select third wall. You'll notice that the screen looks very, very similar. It's color-coded, it's got yellows, it's got greens, and you notice I have to scroll a little bit in this screen. When Automate went to the new LabTech 11 view, we lost a little bit of our space on it, so we may have to rejigger that after a while, but there is more at the bottom, including the legend. This one's much simpler. This shows you the policies, and there's really only three colors. One of them is yellow, means there is no exception. And let me make sure I define an exception. An exception on a computer, again, this is a single computer, allows me to make sure that a policy is not applying to this. And I can either do that before the policy is turned on, or I can do it after the policy is turned on. And this screen helps me out. Anything that's yellow means the policy is not turned on yet. And I can preemptively remove or exempt this computer, make an exception. And I'll do that with Windows 10 Keylogger. And it says, are you sure? And I say yes. And you notice it gives me an orange screen. The computer exception is enabled. This policy, if I ever enable it on the location, will not impact this computer. Now you notice there's some that are green, and that means the location policy is already active, and this looks to correspond pretty closely with what I had left, well, exactly, with what I had on the location screen for Disney. I'm going to click this one, Disable Common Cloud Storage Policy, because I want this computer to be able to go ahead and use Dropbox or whatever. And you notice it gives me a little bit different screen. I can do a permanent or a temporary exception for this computer. So the temporary is kind of the same idea, 5 minutes to 60 minutes, which can be particularly useful if you've got a technician working on a single computer who needs access to a feature that ThirdWall is blocking, and just for a few minutes. So that's a really powerful thing. I'm going to go ahead and make it a permanent exception, and I'm going to hit Save. And you notice it turns orange as well. We didn't differentiate, by the way, between the types of exceptions, temporary or permanent, in the view here. This is a simpler overview page, and it's a functional overview page, so we got a little less fancy with it, but I think you get the idea. By the way, I'm now going to go back to the Disney page, if I can get it to come up okay. Perhaps. There it is. No, I'm got to get on the right page. There we go. Forgive my inability to do that. And I'm going to actually close it out and reopen it. I need to show you something. Go back to here and open Disney again. And I had to do that just to refresh the UI, because the UI won't refresh automatically from anything I do on the computer page. But you notice this one turned a different color. It's now a light green. It's active with exceptions. And I do have one exception on that one computer that we saw. So pretty powerful again in what you can do. So let's see, I need to go back to this page. This is a computer page. So you can turn them on, you can turn them off. Turning them off is quite easy. I want to remove that exception, and it's gone. I'm going to leave that one for now. Not much to describe here other than this makes computers not be impacted. And by the way, it changes the value as appropriate. So it does a full undo, just like we were doing in the location, and it removes it from the policy application completely for a limited or a permanent period of time. Last on this page, there's the emergency action buttons, and these are really powerful. So what do? Isolate will take a computer and it will isolate it, and that means it will be disconnected from everything except for the LabTech server and from the Screen Connect server. Doesn't take long, and once that is the case, this is what you use in case somebody calls you up and says, hey, I think I might have a virus. Today, what do? You simply tell them to unplug the blue wire. In the future, you'll hit the isolate button. It'll take a little while to figure that command out, but it's usually pretty fast. While it's doing that, let me talk about, there it goes. Let me talk about these three, because these three are all about if you have a lost or stolen computer, compromised computer. You can do a screen lock, which essentially is exactly the same as doing a Control-Alt-Delete and hitting lockout on your task manager. So that's what that does. Lockout is a little bit more severe. If you do that, it will, and you notice this one is now completed its action. Lockout will cause the computer to kick everybody off, and it will disable all local accounts. This is a little bit more severe than screen lock because you can get back in from a screen lock with any password. Lockout will disable all local accounts, and they can't get back in. Only a domain account can log back in. And since you've kicked everybody out, if they had work that they hadn't saved, this will make them lose it. So I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to click on Restore Network since it is a toggle, as is, by the way, Lockout. And last but not least is Annihilate. And Annihilate is the other button that requires third wall admin privileges to be able to do it. And once you click it, you get three choices: Quick Annihilate, Secure Annihilate, and Encrypted Annihilate. Please go to our documentation to read what those are and which one you would want to use in any given situation. I'm not going to annihilate this computer right now. So there you go. That's the computer screen and the location screen. We tried to make them as useful and intuitive as possible and give you a ton of power right there at your fingertips. From here, let's move on to the last section, which is reporting. Reporting in Third Wall gives you some amazing new tools to help you really improve your security. First, it gives you the ability to create a report to validate and verify, for audit purposes, every policy that you've got protecting every computer where it's protecting. So that'll give you your clients a great ability to pass any kind of audit, such as HIPAA and others. Second is we give you the ability to track over time every log on, log off, lock and unlock that's happened across an environment, including a data view for drill down. So let's take a look at that. We're going to do the reports first. So I'm going to go to a client. In this case, the client is Name Your Company. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go back down to View Report. And I'm going to go to Third Wall and over here to the Client Audit Report. This will generate fairly quickly. And you can see what this is for two different locations within the client called Your Company. This is the only two locations that we actually have any policies turned on. It gives us a listing of every policy that is currently active and the time that you activated it. So this gives you a great history report. We recommend you do this as a scheduled report for every month, once a month, to generate this and automatically email it to you. And then you can email it to your clients as necessary, or just keep a record of it to make sure you have a full historical record of who has of every single policy that's been around across the entire time that you've been using Third Wall. So it's again, extremely powerful for you to be able to help pass audits of any kind: HIPAA, SOC, PCI, NIST. There's a number of them that you can use, and this will really assist in providing you a trail. Second, we're going to go back again to the client we named Your Company, and we're going to go back down to View Reports. And sometimes you'll see this one pop up down here, or you could end up seeing it there. On my instance, it's actually shown up down here, and we'll just click on Third Wall Logon Report. And again, fairly quick in generating, and this gives you a list of every log on and log off, and we haven't got a whole lot in our demo system here, but every log on and log off that has happened since actually for the last full month. And it does it sorted by user, and then within user by computer, or excuse me, by domain, and then by computer, and finally in chronological order of start time. And it gives you a start and end, assuming there is one. For instance, here is a unlock event that has no corresponding lock event for that particular user. So really pretty powerful, and we hope that you can use this again as a good historical record. Again, we recommend that you run this at least once a month. It gives you a full month back look, and we store 60 days worth of data, but this gives you a full 1 month look back. And last but not least, either at the company client level rather, or at the location, or even at a single computer. And we're going to go with, again, the client level, and we're going to go down, instead of to reports, we're going to go to data views, and we're going to go to Third Wall and use the data view audit. And again, you can see this is very similar to the data view report, except for now it's, the report, but now it's in a data view. And that gives you the ability to, for instance, I want to find everything there is to know about D. Patel, and do a filter, and there's D. Patel. And maybe I want only D. Patel on, well, it looks like he's only on that one computer. You can also filter by date or event. Perhaps I just want to see successful logons, and wait for it. There it goes. So you can see, great drill down, so that when you get that question, hey, was Dave Patel on any computer last night? You can find out in just a few seconds and look like the hero that you are. So those are the three reports that we have, two reports in a data view, that we think will be extremely powerful for you to use as you're as part of your overall cybersecurity package to give you a tremendous look into things that are happening and show them to clients as necessary. Um, that's the basics of how to use our plugin. We hope you like it. We hope that you are, with this overview, able to jump in and use it effectively. If not, you know how to reach us. Www.third, excuse me, well, there's our website, third-wall.com, or you can get us at support@third-wall.com, as you can see from our contact info. Support@third-wall.com is the best way to get hold of us. Anyway, enjoy, keep your computers and your clients safe, and we'll look forward to hearing any feedback you've got for us. Thanks very much.